going to do these. I'm going to do this one in this way. So I wrote notes of comments I wanted to make to you. This is already posted, this very first page of your notes. How dense are you? It is another 30-minute lecture with Tinkerbell on density. So if you haven't watched it, watch it. She goes through this page. The answers are on the page. Actually, I believe all of these pages, the answers are there in parentheses. So as you're doing it, it's to help me so I don't have to keep punching stuff in my calculator. If you ever pre-do the notes and you can't get to my answer, you can always send me an email, but please know that these notes are for us to go over, and I will always go over them on Tuesday. So this pre-lecture is for you to watch on your own, so that's why I said please watch. The quiz, again, it is posted. It is due at 11:59 tonight. On Tuesday, I do have an office hour at 6 o'clock, and I'm willing to look at your lab. On Tuesday, often don't have time to look at my email, so sending me an email might not get answered before 11:59 p.m. I try, but I'm actually in class physically almost the whole day or in office hours. Yeah, don't be shy. Come to office hours. I'm going to try and have the quizzes post. It should at 8 a.m. so you can always do it before class. The other quick comment, and I don't remember if this class had the issue, is just trying to be mindful that you upload the correct document in the correct place, because you only get to submit one time. I will try to allow you more than one submission, but that creates a whole can of worms on my side, and so I'd prefer not to do that. A reminder, your labs are worth a lot. So it is due Thursday. It is what we're doing today. And then I have a note. There is a meteor shower that starts tonight. It is like one of the best viewing opportunities every year in October. It's the next 4 nights. You look to the north at night. You don't have to wait till midnight. You apparently are going to be able to see it once it's dark at 9 o'clock. You look to the Big Dipper and you just be patient. And apparently there's 10 every hour. So you don't have to be that patient. It's not the ones where it's 1 an hour. But anyway, so go watch Shooting Stars and make a wish. So I'm moving on to page 2. And I have 2 more comments I wrote because people send me emails and they're awesome because it helps me for everybody. If you wanted more practice with the metric, I did talk about it in lecture 1, and I went and looked today, and it's at 52 minutes into the lecture. I did a 10-minute quick talk on it. So if you're not able to come to office hours, you can see if going through it again. Often going back and looking at the videos again after I've gone through the class will help you. So when you're doing the lab, please realize you can go back and look at this video. The other comment, and I just learned this last night, if you are in high school, which I know several of you are, and you're using a Chromebook, I just learned last night, you guys don't have YouTube on those Chromebooks, that they actually blocked YouTube because they thought you would do evil stuff on YouTube. If that is the case, you need to contact, you can put me in on the email and at least have access to you also have phones, and your phones, you all have phones, can access YouTube. But if there's an issue, please talk to me. You guys all turned your lab in, so I'm not actually, it was my other class, somebody didn't turn their lab in and they just said, oh, I don't have YouTube access. You all have YouTube access. My son has 2 classes, and both classes, everything's on YouTube. So the links are in their Blackboard and it takes them to YouTube. So, all right. This is a decision we have to make as a class. And it has to do with these conversions. On this page, I used them with 4 sig figs. And the reason is about half of you in this class are going to move on to Chemistry 221, either next term or next year. And in there, when I teach it, and I know most of my colleagues, they actually recommend you learn these with 4 sig figs. And so last year and the year before and the year before, my students in 151 wanted me to use 4 sig figs. When I did it last week, I used only 3. Does anybody care? All right, nobody's saying anything. We're going to go with 4 sig figs today. The other thing, this is not an option. This is something I had to do because of this format. These conversions, they're not given. They will be given, but you might, I think on yours, you have to use these. So you must use. You can Google and you can get zillions of different conversions. The reason we're doing this is we're learning how to use unit conversions. They're extremely, it's a wonderful tool to learn how to use. That is the purpose of the lab. On the lab, you have to use these conversions. When you're within metric, you'll use the metric conversion. So we'll use those some here. So what that means is you can't do 3.28 feet to a meter. You're going to have to use one of these to go between metric. All right, as we go through this, you will see if you have a question, just please ask. You guys, for your midterm, I recommend you have a note page that you have stuff on. And one of the things I would have on that is your metric conversion table, and which is why I don't like any of the other YouTube videos, because they do all these tricks and they're not using the unit conversions, which you're going to have to use. Usually we're live, and this ends up being the thing that the students just rock in Chem 151. And that is because they come to the lab and I make them stay there for 2 hours and they get it by the time they leave. I do not expect that all 23 of you have this mastered today when you leave my lecture. Some of you will, and some of you will have it, probably 3 of you. The other 20 of you, you're going to need Thursday, you're going to need some attention. So again, I open this link at 9. From 10 to 11, I will do some new lecture stuff, and then I will stay on until 1 o'clock on Thursday to help you one-on-one. And Thursday evening, I have an office hour. It says by appointment, but I will be there. Even though Thursday is a special day, you're going to get an email about that. You're going to get a bonus email in the next 2 days, because Thursday is a very special day. You have to answer it in a certain way. And then there was a bonus today. All right. So underlining the information given and figuring out where we want to go. So the thing is with this first piece, this is kind of a evil question to have very first, but it's a good question. A nickel weighs 5.0715 grams is not where we're going to start. So a lot of students will start here. It will actually work out on this one if you start there. But I want to point out a mistake students make is they assume they always just start with the first piece of information they're given. You want to take a deep breath and underline or highlight. Get a different colored pen if you have not already, or a highlighter. And you can get ones that are erasable as opposed to mine. I always start with the piece that has just 1 unit. So starting with 1 unit is the best hint I can give you, the best piece of information. I think on the lab I tried to go through and give you hints, but that may have been the homework set too. All right, we're going to start with 13 nickels. And this is a conversion that 1 nickel is 5.0715 grams. So factor label unit conversions means we do this all in one long format. The lab, the study set for next week, the quiz for next week is all about this. You do not break it into steps. It's not about the answer, it's the process of getting to the answer. So the nickels cancel. Now I have to get to ounces. It's helpful to write down where you're going, at least for your teacher. We're going to use these conversions. So again, you can Google, there's 28.3 grams in an ounce, but I want to see the process. So we're going to use this conversion. A really great question. It's going to happen to all of you at some point. And it was several people came last night. My other class is Monday, Wednesday evening, and they said, I just don't know which one to use. How do I know which one to use? I don't know which one to use. And they were all over the place. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to yourself. This is math. So we're not going to use volume. We're not going to use distance. There we go. There's the one that involves math. And so these are going to be the same ones that are always given to you. And then you want the unit to cancel. So I pull grams down and I'm going to go to pounds. My conversions for you guys, they're going to have 4 sig figs. Again, when I did it the other day, I think I had 3. And this is 453.6. So grams cancel, and we're at pounds, and we want to go to ounces. This is one of the US conversions you do want to know, or not know, put down on like your note sheet. There are 16 ounces to a pound. And then you would punch it in. Sig figs. This is exact. The 13 does not limit your sig figs because it is a nickel and you can count nickels. You can count 13 nickels. If you had 13 milliliters, that is 2 sig figs, because milliliters, grams, centimeters, those are measurements. You cannot count milliliters. You can measure it. So that's why my answer has 4 sig figs. If you use different conversions, you'll also get slightly different answers than me, but we're going to go with it. I keep going unless somebody asks a question. All right, 11,239 feet. I know this is another real quick comment because my other class, so I met them last night. They had an assignment due about this last night. And several people came into my office hours and they dumped all their drama on me. Please don't do that. It's not a good use of our time. Don't come in to me on Thursday and say, oh my God, I don't understand anything. I don't know anything. You know something. So come in with a specific question and say, all right, I know I start here and I know I'm going to meters and I know I'm supposed to do something with these. What do I do? So that is a specific question and I can give you a specific answer. If you come in and say, I don't know either. It's like the worst date ever because I'm like going, wow, these people are drama. And so it turns my brain off and I just move on to somebody else. The other quick comment is I have the capacity to send you all to rooms. So if my office hours do get busy, like today I thought was fine because most people were just working on stuff. But if everybody's here and everybody's at different places, I can actually put you guys in rooms with like 4 people. And so that can be quieter and then you can work with each other in those rooms like we would in lab. The disadvantage is I can only be, at this point, I only know how to put myself in one room at a time. I meditate every day quite intensely. And so if I master being in multiple places at once, you'll be the first to know because I'll be in, well, maybe you won't know because you're only in one room at a time. I have a choice. I can go feet to inches or I can go feet to miles. It doesn't really matter. Does anybody care? I'm going to go to inches. Fill in that way today. You could go the other way, 5,280 feet in a mile if you want to do that. That's one of the numbers you should write down. I don't know if you guys can see me. 12 inches to a foot, 3 feet to a yard. Yeah, I think I'm really little right now. I did these on the board the other day, so. All right, it's up to you if you cross out units, but I went there so I could get to metric. The whole thing is I have to go to metric. These are your bridges that get you there. So I'm using this bridge. 1 inch is 2.540 centimeters. And now meters. So centimeters to meters. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can say there are 100 centimeters in a meter. That's how I usually do it. To be consistent, I'm going to use this chart. Again, how this chart works, you put the 1 with the prefix. So I say 1 centimeter, and then centi is 10 to the negative 2. My recommendation to you, do it one way and be consistent. So whatever method you use, you have to show your work and you have to be consistent. All right, so when I did the answer, I don't remember if you use this one versus this one, you get slightly different numbers here. And I don't remember which way I did. The other quick disclaimer, because there's always somebody who asks me this conversion 2.540 centimeters equals an inch. Somebody has declared it's exact. I don't know who that person is who declared it because they are not. They're really, really, really close, but it does limit us to 4 sig figs. I know you can show me the 100 websites and they're going off of some random person who said they're the same, but they're not. They came, centimeter is a sun, and it was the emperors. I don't know. That's where they got centimeters from, it turns out. Or maybe that was the inch. All right, we're gonna do the next one, unless somebody stops me. That's the only information. Mushrooms are really gas efficient is the other piece, and we're trying to get to miles per gallon. We're working with 2 units here. So you wanna write 1 on top, 1 on the bottom. And we're starting with 283 kilometers per liter. Per means per 1. You don't need to put the 1 there, but you can. I just realized something I didn't mention last week with your class, and I learned it drives about half of you crazy, and it's on the previous question. There is nothing in this box. It's just blank. But half of you have minds apparently like mine. Extra blessings if that were true. I'm okay with emptiness because that's really all there is. If you can't handle emptiness, draw a picture there. So I will sometimes put a heart because I can draw one quick. You can put like under the nickels, you can draw a nickel, or you can draw a flower. You can draw a unicorn, you can draw a lion, you can draw an elephant. I don't care. You can draw a football. Or you can leave it blank. One setup. We're working with 2 units. We're going to do it in one flow. The whole point of the lab is that you have to show them in one flow. Again, only 1 unit per box. So kilometers over liters. You never do a slash. And we're in luck. We can change kilometers straight to miles. I do want to mention the people last night who came panicked and were dumping all their drama on me. They stayed. A couple of them stayed until 9 o'clock last night. And I stayed with them and they got it. They had it. They answered their questions once they calmed down. So you just have to find the time and the time that works for you and me, because all right, my conversions also, I always put the 1 in my conversions with the US unit, and then the 4 digits go with the metric. It makes me feel like I can be smart in front of all of you. So that gets me to miles. When I have 2 units, I circle a unit when I get there, and that works. So now we're going to do liters. So this unit, if you're in the bottom, it now pulls to the top. I give you the conversion between liters to quarts. The other reason I'm limiting you is it works better when I limit you conversions. The students who use my conversions actually do better. I'm limiting the directions you can go, and if you keep using my conversions, you get to know them. In the past, you had to memorize them, and that ends up working better. But you guys want to have, you're going to be given these, so we all have the same. All right, US gets the 1.9463. My liters cancel. So now I'm going from bottom to top. So my quarts move to the top. And it's nice to have where you're going. I'm going to go quarts to gallons. This is one of the ones I wrote on the board last week. There's 4 quarts to a gallon. So 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. And 2 pints equal 1 quart. We'll run into those, but it's handy to have that. All right. Quarts cancel. The other comment I wanted to make with this one, do not abbreviate gallons as G. G means grams. So you have to use the accepted abbreviations. All right, on the next one, in the past, because of time, I seem to have less time in this format because none of you talk back to me. That made a lot of sense. Anyway, the mistake students will make, I'll have you all try this one. Oh, maybe I should do that. I'm gonna stop this. Actually, no, we're gonna do it together. The mistake students make is they just start with the first piece of information. I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna show you why this won't work. Is they just start here and then they struggle and they try something, they change the meters to kilometers and they get stuck. The reason this will not work, we're solving for time, we're solving for hours, and your time is in the denominator. If you started with this, you would have to start with time on top, so you would have to flip it. What my suggestion is from up here. Oh, I didn't write it. Oh, I did. Start with the one that has 1 unit, 101 miles. All right. I did not know that I thought unicorns could fly. I work with kids and they informed me of my misconception. You guys are all children. My goal is to bring your inner child out somehow during this next couple months. Makes Christmas much more fun. All right. How can you change miles to hours? I am not going to give you extra information on assignments that you're turning in. So you're going to use all that information. This is distance. Miles is something, right? We measure with a meter stick, be a lot of meter sticks. So I have to get to meters, and then I can change my meters to seconds. So I'm going to go miles to kilometers. That's one of those at the top of the page. Again, miles and kilometers. All right, US gets the 1. Yeah. I think, Michael, you were the one who had that, and I thought it was the Olympic flame, because this was an Olympic year. USA, number 1. And then kilometers to meters. And then I can change my meters to seconds. So my handy dandy chart, kilo means 10 to the 3rd. How my chart works, kilo gets the 1, and you write 10 to the 3rd. You can also write 1,000, but 1 kilometer is 10 to the 3rd meters. And now this number comes in here. The 9.8 flips with the meters onto the bottom. So we have 1 second over 9.8 meters. That is why I start with 1 unit. Anytime something has 2 units, It can be flipped upside down or used right side up. How you know is so the units cancel. That's the magic. Once you get done with that lab, you will have mastered this. If you're feeling rough with the metric, by the end of this week, you should have this down. If you do the lab, and again, making the time. All right. You can change seconds to hours in one step. It is not 60. It is 3,600. So it's 60 times 60. Or you can go 60 seconds to a minute and then 60 minutes to an hour. And we punch it all in. And the reason it has 2 sig figs, I'm going to go through sig figs. I've kind of ignored them on some of the other ones. What limits your sig figs are the numbers I give you. So these conversions between US and metric, they have 4. And the numbers in the problem that are measurements. It is not what you start with, it's the one with the least. Metric to metric, that table is exact. These US to US ones, they're exact. The least number of sig figs. Conversions of time are exact. A time measurement of a certain amount of time is not exact. So my answer has only 2 sig figs. So this will determine it. All right, I just keep going. This next one is all metric. And a couple things happened on this problem last night. One is this symbol is micro. And what I was reminded of last night, I always forget this, some of your printers don't know that symbol. And so they'll just put either a blank or a dot or a box. So if that ever happens to you when you print, go back and look at the original document and you will see my mu. That's called a mu. And so this is micro. Sometimes I write it as MCG. So that is our microgram per centiliter. Again, we're going to do this in one flow. Now, you could go micrograms to milligrams. What I have found is very few students can do it correctly. What I recommend whenever you work with metric, that you get rid of the metric prefix and then you put the new one on. So I'm going to change micrograms to grams, grams to milligrams. And then I do the same centiliters. Yeah, I know there's 10 centiliters in a deciliter. What I find is students have to think about it too much and then they do funky stuff. So I'm doing centiliters here to liters. So my liters now will go to deciliters. So we have 2 units, so top to bottom, and then bottom to top, bottom to top. So how my chart works from the lab, from last week's notes, I think. Anywhere you see a prefix, you put the number 1. This actually really rocks, doesn't require much thinking. Prefixes all get the 1, and then you look at the chart. The micro means 10 to negative 6. The milli means 10 to negative 3. Centi means 10 to negative 2. Deci means 10 to negative 1. You may have like worked all these out while I was talking because you're really good at it, but you might want to write down. That's really cool, this method of setting it up. I also wanted to mention something else because my other class had the same first lab. And there was actually a student, she's a really good student, and on the lab, and I wrote a note to her, and I know I did it for 1 or 2 people in this class. She had on the page of showing her metric, she had all of her answers right, except 2 of them. And it turned out, and it was when she came last night that I realized finally her mistake. And so there's somebody in here who was this. On that page in the mastering metric from the lab, the micro symbol, again, some of your printers don't know it. So if right now you printed these notes and this just says G over centiliters, I probably wrote a note to you on your lab and said, I don't know why you messed these two up. You did something really weird. It should say micro. So you just need to be aware that your printer doesn't know my symbol and to always go back and look. And then some of you just did your scientific notation incorrectly. All right, one more on this page. So underlining your information, you can read the story if you want. Some students tell me they don't like my stories. There's too many words. And there was somebody in the class, and I wrote a note to you. I don't know if you all saw my note I wrote to you. I know who it was, but your writing is poetry, and it was phenomenal. You almost had me crying reading your comments, but I don't know if you know you write as a poet, but you should really go out there and just play like the lute and say poetry under trees to people and make all of us just weep with gratitude. All right. So I want to get to pounds. The symbol for pounds is LB. A lot of students think that says a 1. You can write the word out. It's up to you. You have to be able to read your handwriting. A couple of you wrote a note to me that you were sorry your handwriting was sloppy. I could read all your handwriting. You were fine. If there was an issue, I would have written a note to you. And I recognize these first 2 weeks, we have a grace period. We're all learning how to do this. This is the honeymoon period. Everybody likes each other. I had a former student sent me an email and asked how things were going, and I'm like, we're in the honeymoon period. I actually want to thank you because this summer they didn't give me that grace, and I got an evil email, like the worst email I've ever had the second day of class. The student apologized, but the damage had been done. Don't do that to your teacher. They worked at Target, and I think they'd had an issue with customers there, and they just took it out on me when they got home. All right. So before you send an email, go for a walk and then come back and you'll probably have cooled down. I'm starting with this one. Why? Why didn't I start with the 88.8 milligrams per deciliter?
Single unit.
Single unit. Thank you, Stephen. It has 1 unit. This will make your life so much easier. If you have multiple places to start with the one that has 1 unit. I say this because there's a bonus on your lab. And I think there's like 8 pieces of information in the question, and you're going to use all of it. I think it's only 6. If you find the one that has 1 unit, it all works out. It's all in the units. All right, what I see is this is volume. And here, deciliters is volume. So I have to get my pints to deciliters, not in one step. I take a deep breath, tell myself, I can do it. It's just math, it's just chemistry, it's just one class. It is not life. There's much more important stuff. Keep it in perspective. This is volume. I want to use that conversion because I have to go between US and metric. So pints, I want to get them to quarts, 2 pints in a quart. And again, make a little sheet. There is, I know that's what I wanted to say, there is going to be a review day. It's built in on a Thursday that I will videotape, and we will do practice for the midterm. That's still a couple weeks off. And I'll go through the things that you want to have like on your sheet. The lecture I'm doing Thursday is the periodic table. So if you have not printed a periodic table or don't have a placemat, of the periodic table, you need to have a periodic table. Oh, it's actually in the notes. So if you print the notes, there's a periodic table in there. Quarts to liters and 0.9463. And then liters to deciliters. So again, this was volume. I'm going to use this. The deciliters is volume. I have to get from US to metric and then get that prefix on there. So you can do 10 deciliters to a liter if that's how you do metric and you get it right. I'm perfectly fine with that. Or if you use my chart, deci gets the 1 because that's the prefix, and I define it as a tenth of a liter. All right. Units cancel. I'm at deciliters. This comes in. I do not flip it because the units work out without flipping it. So you don't always flip things, only if you have to. That gets me to milligrams. All right, now I take a deep breath. I look at where I want to go. I want to get to pounds. So I look back, top of the page, or you can put this on a card. There's my conversion in mass. I recognize pounds and ounces are not masses, they're weights. We're going to stay on Earth for this class right now. So I'm going to go to grams and then grams to pounds. So milli means 1,000th of a gram. So that's how the metric works. That table works. The 1 goes with the prefix, 10 to negative 3 goes with the grams. A prefix can never be alone. You cannot just have a milli. You can only have a milligram. That was actually a question several people asked me on Saturday. So you can't have a micro. You can have a microgram, you can have a microliter, you can have a micrometer, you have a microsecond. All right, and then here US gets the 1 and 453.6. And why does my answer has only 2 sig figs? I'm correct. I'm asking why.
Because of the 3.3 pints.
The original, yeah, with the numbers I gave you had 3, but this has 2. So it's the least number of sig figs. And then my conversions at the top of the page all have 4. So it's the numbers I give you. Those are what you're looking for sig figs. So this had 2, this had 4, this had 3, this had 4. In the first 2 weeks, I often will write sig figs down like that because we are still learning. The other ones are exact. Metric to metric is exact. US to US is exact. Questions? So I know I kind of went a little fast maybe for some of you, but you can always go back and watch that little part of the video. We're going to do another page. I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop recording for 10 minutes. Pause. All right, so we're going to walk through this last page. And again, I put the answers in parentheses. This will happen throughout the term. And as Alex caught my mistake, and that does happen. So if you can't get to my answer, and I do remember, I don't know why, where I got that number for the giraffe. So our giraffe-ish just is actually every one of these measurements is an ish. It means roughly. It means none of them are exact. So you don't put the ish in your question. You just write 20.1 feet. This question has been on here for 10 years, so I don't know if Zulu is still with us. Now, of course, perhaps you can Google or there's 3.28 feet in a meter. There are not 3 feet in a meter. There are 3 feet in a yard. A yard and a meter are not the same. But again, this should say you have to use these conversions. I'm going to do the centimeter inch one. You could do the kilometer one. 12 inches to a foot, 1 inch, 2.540. 0 centimeters. And then you can do 100 centimeters to a meter, or a centi means 10 to negative 2 meters. This just reminded me, if for some reason you're ever late or you get kicked out or you have to leave, you can always sign back in as long as I'm here. And I'm assuming somebody else punched it in. Maybe your teachers should make sure. I know every year I get my answers wrong. 3 sig figs, because that was the ish height of Zulu. There was a question, oh, and it's like 6.1265, so we have to round up to 6.13. On this one, you just punch it straight across, multiply, multiply, multiply. All right, your number 2 is the car is 32 miles per gallon. A comment for you. You can be furiously writing all these down as I'm going through it, or you can sit back and just listen. I recommend for every single one of you, whether you print these 2 pages again, you want to go back and do this on your own. What my students who were extremely successful in the spring and summer, what they started doing is they would listen on the video, they would stop it when I would do a question, they would try the question, and then they would listen to me do it and see if I added anything, I guess. All right, I like to write down where I'm going. We want to make sure we write them as fractions, because that is why it's called factor label. I'm going to change my miles to kilometers. And then we're good. And now the gallons. I know I want to get to quarts. If you get used to using my conversions, it's quarts to liters. They're very similar, but they're not exactly the same. A liter is a little bit more. 1 quart, 0.9463 liters. All right, my units cancel. It's all one setup. 2 sig figs, because I started with 2. I want to answer a question somebody asked earlier, or actually last night. This was something I talked about last week, how I would punch this in my calculator. I ignore all the ones. Again, you don't have to do this. I care that you can punch it in and get it. It's the setup that I'm looking at. If a number is on top, I multiply. If the number is on the bottom, I divide. I don't use the parentheses, because again, I did not have parentheses on my calculator for more than the first half of my life. So if it's on the bottom, I just say divide. If it's on top, I say multiply. So that's how I would punch it in. I find it more efficient. But if you like the parentheses and that's how you're comfortable with, that's fine. All right, the next question is the butterfly. There's 2 pieces of information, and we're going to start with which piece? You're all saying
3.14 miles.
Yay. Thank you, Damon. 3.14159 miles, which is pi. See, we run into this number a lot because I like pi. I'm trying to get you all to learn it to more than 3.14. Up here, I give you the conversion between US and metric. So 1 mile. US with my conversions gets the 1.609 kilometers. You don't have to show canceling out your unit, but it's helpful. And then where do I want to go? I got to kilometers. I know I want to be in metric. And I look here and I want to get to centimeters. I recommend doing it in 2 steps. You know, there's people who are very clever and they can do it in 1 step. That doesn't make them better. Just how they do it. So change kilometers to meters and then meters to centimeters. Kilo and centi get the 1. Kilo means 10 to the 3rd. Centi means 10 to the minus 2. I'm now at centimeter. And do this in blue. I'm going to flip it upside down. So why am I going to flip this one upside down? So the unit cancels. I need my centimeters cancel. The 536 stays with the centimeter. The slash means 1 second. So I have to flip it. I want to go to minutes. So 60 seconds to 1 minute. That's it. If me doing that one and you're like, I got it, then you've got this. You've got this down. All right, the next three are density. Again, there's a pre-lecture video I'd posted of Tinkerbell doing density. I do that with some of the weeks. I know there's one next week, if I can find my demo to videotape it. All right, I have only one place to start. I am ending with 2 units, so I need to start with 2 units. If you're ending with only 1 unit, that would be why you're starting with 1 unit. That's something that can help. The order that you do the steps in doesn't actually matter, but it can be helpful to do it in a sequential way that the units cancel. All right, 453.6 grams to 1 pound. So my grams cancel, I have pounds. And I know I want to get to liters because, again, liters gets me to quarts. It just takes practice. There were like 1 or 2 of you actually sent me emails on Saturday or Sunday, and you were trying to do this, and that was awesome and that was wonderful. But these are notes. These are for you to follow along with me as I'm doing them in class. I always go over them on Tuesday. And so like next week's notes will show up before Tuesday, so you have time to print them. You can always look at them and stuff, but I don't expect that you've mastered it before you come to class. My hope is by the end of the week that you have, since this is our lab, and that will make next week's study set and quiz really simple. All right, the milliliters cancels. So I have to go liters, not to gallons, liters to quarts, because that's the one I'm telling you to use. And then 4 quarts to 1 gallon. And this is one of my favorite questions. Mercury is Hg again. It is blue on this periodic table because it is actually a liquid at room temperature. If you had a gallon of mercury, like think of a gallon of milk, if you had a gallon of mercury, it would weigh 114 pounds. So it'd be like taking a small girl and squishing her into a gallon of milk. It's extremely dense. And that's what density means. It is packed in there. Water is pretty much 1 gram per milliliter. So this is almost 14 times more dense than a gallon of water. So it's pretty cool. It looks like water. It's just shimmery water. It has a silvery look. All right, the next one. There are 2 pieces of information. And we do start with the 1.618 because it has 1 unit. Be careful again with the LB because it looks like a 1. So make sure you don't think it's a 1. All right. You will notice eventually that I'm a chemist, and chemists tend to say density in grams per milliliter. There is something, I mentioned it somewhere, I think Tinkerbell mentions it. A cubic centimeter is a milliliter. That is a piece of information. That's like one of those things that go on your sheet. As a piece of information we use in this problem. All right, we're going to change our pounds to grams. We want to get to metric. And then the density comes in. Density is how much mass is packed into a certain volume. It's how tight the atoms are packed together. Yeah. I'll give you, I already gave you guys a bonus question that you can email me. So I'm not going to give you another one. All right, we have to flip the density on its head. Why? Why did I write it as volume over mass when density is mass over volume?
To cancel out the units.
Yes. And Stephen, you answered that like 2 or 3 times. So we'll give you a bonus point too. I have to pay you guys to get you to talk to me, so I'll give you bonus points. That's like my payment. So that's write that on the board so I remember to put it on my notes. All right. There is a point that some of you, I tell you, you can't get any more bonus points so that other people have a chance. But we're not there yet. The next step is a cubic centimeter is a milliliter. They're the same thing. They both get a 1, but it allows us to get to milliliters because to get to pints, we need to get to quarts. So we have to change our milliliters to liters, our liters to quarts, and our quarts to pints. Some students like to do it this way, and that is perfectly fine, where you write out your pathway, and that's fine. Milli, 10 to negative 3, or a liter is 1,000 milliliters. Again, be consistent. Quart, 0.9463, 2 pints to a quart. And it's a really weird answer. 3 sig figs, even though we started with 4, it has 3 because of the density. The zeros don't count because they come before the 1. All right, one more. This is the symbol for density. I know Tinkerbell mentions that, but it comes up in the lab and somebody will ask me. It is a rho sign, R-H-O. It's a Greek symbol. You don't really need to remember that. This is a tough one. The other comment I've been meaning to make is give yourself enough space. So start as far over to the left of your paper as you can. The other thing I wanted to mention on this previous one is how I would punch it in my calculator, because somebody always asked me. I would take the 1.618 times 453.6, I ignore the ones, divide 19.3, multiply 10 to negative 3, divide, multiply. So I'm just going left to right. You can also multiply across the top and then divide across the bottom. I like my way better, but that's why I do it that way. All right, I can show you different ways to do this one. We're trying to get to kilograms, so we need to get our feet to inches to centimeters. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. You can do feet to inches. You either have to do that and do it 3 times, feet to inches, feet to inches. That's perfectly fine. What I find is about half of you have to physically show it 3 times. Or, and so you would do your 12 inches to a foot 3 times. So you're multiplying by 12 3 times. And if that's you, great, do it that way. There's nothing wrong with that. What I like to do to be more efficient is I like to cube the step. And I cube it the whole way through like that. The 1 cubed is 1, so that's up to you if you show it. You want to put the cube on the number, because in your calculator, and this is back to a question I think you asked me, Stephanie, beforehand. It was about something related. The 3.33 is not cubed. The 3.33 is already a cubic number. The 12, though, you take it to the chevron 3, or you just say times 12 times 12 times 12. But that gets us the cubic inches. And so same with the next step. You can either show it 3 times or you can cube it. Using the parentheses, I will tell you this. You can put a parentheses, you would have to put a parentheses around the whole thing. What happens on your calculator, you don't see that cube. And 9 out of 10 times, which is only 10%, 9 out of 10 times people miss the cube. So only 10% of the time they remember to put it in. 10% means you just failed. You got it wrong. So I recommend showing it this way. So again, you can either multiply by 2.54 3 times, or you just do it by 2.54 to the third power. Next step is 2.70 grams to a cubic centimeter. That gets us out of the cubes. Yeah, and so it makes it hard to see how the units cancel. So I like to show the cube on every piece. And then 1,000 or 10 to the third grams to 1 kilogram. 3 sig figs. And that's it. So questions? I'm going to stop if there's no questions. And